And and now those are starting to pick back up. So we'll see what this year really brings out towards the end. But overall, we have a pretty consistent demand for service from the neighborhood. And pretty consistent when you look at all these too is what the busiest months for service are. It's pretty standard citywide. This is nothing out of the ordinary. So what we see is an increase in spring with the summer months being the heaviest, similar to what we've seen every year here. And here in April and May, we've seen these calls jump up, which would indicate kind of everyone coming back out of their houses for after COVID and starting to get back outside. And we get busier when people get back outside. If you go down here, this is actually what we see the highest offenses, so the highest type of reported crimes in your neighborhood for 2021. And this is consistent year over year, so there's not a lot of differences, but theft. And this is a citywide, the highest crime citywide is theft. Those are low-level thefts, theft 3, theft 2, small-level thefts, not something that we consider burglary or robbery. Those are different levels, different crimes. And fugitive means someone had a warrant, so we contacted somebody, they had a warrant for their arrest. Traffic, hit and runs, which this is not typical in most of the other neighborhoods I've seen, and I would contribute this mostly to the fact that there's some commerce areas, probably parking lots that have more reporting of hit and runs, drug law violations, and vandalism. And here's when we look over the other side where it says crimes of interest. These are more things that are more affect specifically in neighborhoods where we talk about people's cars being stolen. We've had a reduction, which is a good thing, year over year. So last year at this time versus this year at this time, we've had just less than half of the same amount. Previous this year, the first trimester of 2021, we ran a pretty extensive auto theft reduction mission, working with multiple agencies and the jail and POs and investigators trying to identify the most prolific issues going on with car theft. Not only the reasons why cars get stolen, but also who may be stealing them, and then focusing efforts on those people, trying to get them reconnected with their POs, or if they have been stealing cars, obviously putting criminal cases and investigations on those people to get them removed from the community where they're causing harm and victims, and get them into a program with their POs, try and whatever it is they need to get out of the life cycle of crime. But that actually reduced or flattened the curve of motor vehicle theft throughout the city, and your neighborhood was affected. Theft from vehicles, again, that's something being stolen out of the vehicle, shoplifting, and all thefts. Those are kind of high in the area again. I contribute that to commerce areas. And then residential burglary, previous year 0 to date, now 2. Statistics, it's significant to anyone who was victimized in a burglary. It's a pretty substantial victimization. People feel violated. Statistically speaking, it's hard to analyze that, so we're not really sure what 2 means as far as analysis. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'll talk really quickly over these alarm calls you see here. Taken 114 alarms in the neighborhood this year. 99.8% of all alarms are false in the city, and that's a pretty consistent year over year. And we have approximately 3,000 a year. So when it says cleared false, cleared other just means they didn't put false in, that sometimes they talk to a homeowner, or they work the homeowner through how to operate their manual push button alarm. So that's the overall picture of the neighborhood right now. What I also want to talk, I'm going to stop sharing this one. There we go. Welcome, Councilor Campbell. Good to see you. And first off, I want to just, since I'm here and this is my first day and this is a neighborhood, this is my new body camera that I got this week. If you can see it, let's see, there it is. So just figuring this out, we are issuing these this week, and that's a pretty big project for our department, not only for our officers, but I think our community as well. Our community was very supportive of it. Councilor Campbell and our city council was very supportive of us getting body cameras, and our officers were really really happy that we've got them. So these are terrific tools for not only investigations, but for the transparency of our work, accountability piece in the back end as well, and also for the community. So these are brand new. I just got mine. I'm trying to figure out how to wear it. I'm gonna, this is already 6:17, so I want to open up to a couple questions because I know that's what really people want to talk about. So you can ask them, or I'll look over here in the chat. Okay, there's one on the chat I can read right now. It says, what are the two worst problems regarding homelessness? If you had enough money, what would change ASAP? Wow, that's not a small question, Joan. So I guess my biggest issue around identifying really that piece or trying to answer that question is every person is an individual and every person has their own story of how they became in the situation they are, whether they're homeless or they're what I would refer to as transient, meaning moving between different houses, couch surfing sometimes. So there's not only multiple different, I guess, for lack of a better word, categories, right, of how we would say persons are homeless, whether they're chronically homeless, whether they're temporarily homeless, they're transient, moving back and forth in homes, but not their home, and they don't have a place to call theirs, or they're in a shelter, unsheltered. So there's a variety, but also in that, there's also a story for every person. So some of it is revolved around family, joblessness, long-term economic despair, or poverty, right? Abuse, crime victim, most frequently some sort of substance involvement, mental health issues, crisis, arrest, and they never got back on their feet after getting out of the jail system or prison system. I mean, there's so many stories. And of course, there's some who are nomad or travelers who choose that traveling. It's typically not what we refer to as the unsheltered homeless, right? There's a whole nother a group of people who just travel. So it's such a big question that it's so hard to answer. I think there's much of it revolves, if it was really truly me based on 26 years of experience on the street, seeing people, having family members who are homeless and working through drug problems that I've taken care of. And if it was truly all up to me, I'd probably put a large substantial piece of money into drug treatment and mental health treatment. I think those are some of the two largest contributing factors to leading people to get on the streets and be chronic, unsheltered persons. And those are so hard to get out of. Speaking from experience of family members, it's just such a circular problem, and every system seems to be set up not for success or ease, but for difficulty. And none of them work together. I'm talking about the medical system, the treatment system, the resource system, social services. Everything seems to work in its own independent tower. And if they work together, it sure would be nice. That's where I would put all my money if I had it, but I don't. So that, John.
If do you think the problem here in Bend is going to get worse before it gets better? That's one question. And the other one is, do you know of any city, town where they have an effective program that takes care of people who need this kind of help?
The second part you said, what program?
Do you know of any other place, any state or town or city where they have an effective program that helps the homeless?
Well, there's a lot. So first off, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better around homelessness in Bend. So I feel like we're coming into summer, and a lot of people come here during the summer, and a lot of people who are homeless come here during the summer. It's better weather than other places. There's definitely a traveler network within the homeless community that identify places to go that are more lenient and offer more resources. I don't know if Bend kind of falls in that category or not. I know Portland did and does. So there's specifically when I've talked to many people on the street who are homeless who aren't from the Pacific Northwest, and when spring and summer come, the travelers who travel rail frequently it's spread among the groups and crews that they head west because it's better weather at the time, and there's a significant amount of resources and leniency around criminal enforcement. So that's a pretty popular message among traveler groups. Now that doesn't affect, like I said, there's multiple different, I guess, groups, right? So it's getting expensive to live here. There seems to be a significant labor reduction crisis where people can't find workers, but it's super expensive to live here. So will that start affecting additional people or families when they, for some reason, are here or have to be here or have lived here and they now can't afford it anymore, whether it be their own home or wherever they were staying, the rent's gone up or whatever that is. There hasn't seemed to be any big solutions yet. There isn't a significant amount of money going towards drug rehabilitation. There isn't significant amounts of money going towards mental health rehab. So those problems seem to be getting worse. With the legalization of some pretty hardcore drugs, I don't see that. That may be a benefit in not criminalizing people for having addiction issues, which I actually support. And not every police officer supports that, I understand, but maybe seeing it for so long. I worked a lot of drug cases. I've worked a lot of narcotics teams. I've had personal family members involved in addiction. So seeing it from that side, the user, right, I guess at that lowest level, the person who is addicted that relies on that, I don't think should be suffering the penalties from the criminal justice system. I think that's a treatment thing, right? And we get them clean and off of that. That's how you get that person out of that lifestyle. Until they get clean, though, they're not going to get out of lifestyle. I can just tell you that if you don't have family members that are involved in drugs or anything like that, the only thing that they're interested in is a drug. That where they're living is not of importance to them. And frequently that actually allows for an easier access to a lot of different narcotics. So yeah, I do think it's going to get worse.
Okay.
I guess not a great answer. It's not terrific what I want to hear, but I think we look at reality right now.
And that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question on that. And could you give some specifics on the homeless situation on Hunnell? And then now it's expanded to the street behind the hotels there off of nearby Hunnell too. And are referrals from other places in town being directed to that area? And also, could you talk about the congestion that's happening and the street safety scene there, dumping and sanitation, and what enforcement is happening there, and what options do we have to disperse some of that?
Yeah, so I think, and another question kind of comes along that Tim wrote here is how much authority does the police department have regarding homeless people camping out in the city? And I think these all kind of align along the same question is, what do the police do about this? And this is where there's so much misunderstanding about police or law enforcement role around homelessness. And I think it's important to recognize that a homelessness person is just like you or me, right? We're all the same, we're all people. They just happen to not have four walls to sleep in at night and have to be outside, which if that was you or me, I'm certain the police would be called. It's something that I do inside my home, right? At some point, like if I would stand out in the middle of the street doing it. So I think it's important that we recognize that just simply by the act of being homeless is not a crime. It's not something that the police get involved in. It's not criminalization. It's not our job, to be honest. And it's really not something that we're made or built to do. That's not our function. The police are really the criminal enforcers, meaning we enforce criminal law, we respond to threats and activity and crimes, and that's what we do. Now, we do that through a variety of means, by community engagement, traffic stops, ensuring traffic safety. So specific about Hunnell area and Clawson and Loco and Cooley and those areas down there, those are all within the city. And what we do are pretty limited around, we don't decide who gets to sleep where in the right-of-way usage. We don't have any authority over right-of-way usage as far as criminal activity. And the city manager has recently enacted a policy that I think Alyssa asked about here around policy of removal unsafe campsites. And if you have an opportunity to read through that policy, and then also visit the city's website, there's a tab on homelessness questions or home unhoused. So I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a tab on it, and it has a lot of the kind of the facts and frequently asked questions about homelessness in the city and what's being done about it, and what specifically can be done. So I think it's really important to separate police from the homelessness response. And I've worked really hard to do that. And with our officers, we don't decide you get to put, your RV there and sleep or not. What we will do though is we do enforce parking ordinances. The entire city is subject to parking ordinances, and those are ordinances passed by council and enacted as a city as part of the regulation of the city government and municipality, right? So we go down there pretty frequently and we enforce parking issues that are going on, just like we would in any other neighborhood. We've had plenty of complaints there about parking and traffic safety. There will at some point have to be some sort of initiation of a bigger probably project to get that area really under control around safety. I've heard a lot of people say they drive by and people run through the road, or there's been, I've driven by it and watched, a lot of activity that some's probably drug deals, others are probably other deals. We have a lot of reported crimes there. We're down there a lot on Hunter and Clausen. We have fires. So we are down there a lot. And that is one of the evaluation factors is when I look at campsites and I say, okay, this one seems to be out of control, I really look at a variety of things. And it's really, does it affect public safety? That's where I look, right? Is the overall community affected by this? Meaning, is this a high impact site? Does it impact the community more than other campsites that would be considered low impact? Someone who's low impact, who really doesn't have the police responding to their campsites, it's not really large, there's not open air drug use, there's not feces and urine thrown outside, there's not needles or dangerous things out, there's not, tore up cars or bikes or stolen property. That's a pretty low impact if you don't have any of that stuff, right? You're not yelling, not causing problems, you're just simply existing. That's low impact. We really don't need to do a lot of work in that area. But these other areas, there's a couple of them where they're large sites, all of those other things I just mentioned are occurring. Those are something that the city manager and the city council has been working through on addressing those. And this is a really narrow line that cities and municipalities have to walk right now because of not only the Oregon state legislative rules that are in effect and will be coming even further into effect after this session, but also some pretty stringent and sometimes confusing previous court determinations by federal courts. Boise, Grants Pass cases that have taken effect that if we do something wrong, then as a city, then we're going to be liable for something. So they're very narrow paths to walk. And really for this issue, there is a significant amount of resources and energy going into finding the right kind of path for everyone's safety, for everyone's respect, compassion. The goal is not to just continually move people just to move people, but there also has to be some sort of understanding that you can't just set up in the middle of right-of-ways and block streets. So there's this balance somewhere. And we look to try and find what that best balance is, and we work with a significant amount of social service partners. All of the Homeless Leadership Coalition are right on our hips when the city does any actions, and we're actually more on their hips. They really lead a lot of those actions, and sometimes we're there if they need us. So we provide security for policing around homeless camps. We provide security and we provide investigation of criminal acts. So we don't make any other determinations. We don't move people. We don't do that work. That's a long explanation. Sorry, but there's a lot to it.
I think we'll extend our speaker for another, 15 or 20 minutes. I can see time is slipping away, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to just a little bit. First of all, you didn't address the referral issue. It almost seems like they're being referred from other locations in town to there. And then some of them are quite long-term, months at a time or more. Some of them are starting to construct structures And anyway, some of them now are double parking. And also, if you drive down that street, you have to be very careful not to hit anybody or not to run it over anybody, even at going at 10 miles an hour. And you can see people every time you drive making a trip to the woods. And so I'm just wondering, you know, there's been some attempt to put some wash stations and some portable toilets and a dumpster there, which by the is always full. But yeah, and you know, I have sympathy for their position in life if they're struggling to with the high cost of housing. But you know, some of them are, and some of them aren't. Some of them, you know, that's their way of life. So anyway, I'm just wondering, it seems to be expanding and growing, and I'm pretty sure I could safely say that's the largest congregation of those in the city of that type of use. So
Yeah, I think,
follow-up question, comments.
yeah, I can't remember everything you said. That's probably why I didn't answer it, but that's a good question. As far as structures in the right of way, we don't police structures in the right of way. That's code enforcement. They've been working on that. As far as towing or parking ordinance issues, we do go out fairly regularly and respond to complaints in the area. Obviously, we've got a lot of complaints about parking in the area. The one thing we don't do is tow cars that people are using to live in. So we're not towing basically their home. And I know that may seem, you know, a little bit like, well, so you're not equally enforcing parking ordinances, but I think we also have the reality of to have some empathetic response around taking someone's home versus, you know, a different car who's just parked illegally somewhere. So that's a common sense approach too around RV towing, that if we tow RVs and they're not picked up, it costs us $5,000 as a city to have them because they take them, because those aren't resellable. They end up taking them apart and there's a bunch of hazardous materials, and we pay at least $5,000 each one. That's a lot for the city to also take. So our goal is to not really tow them if we don't have to. However, we have made quite a few tows out there. People also, I mean, this is the growing problem. People use it as a place to abandon property, cars and RVs too. So there's a bunch of abandoned cars and abandoned RVs, because if it's my old RV and I don't want to pay $5,000 for it, I take off the plates and scrape the bin and drop it. Someone else is going to pay for it. So there's a whole other problem that's going on. The garbage are full because everyone comes there and starts putting their stuff in the dumpsters there, and it's not being used by the people there. So it's not, I will tell you right now, I am fully, like I said, fully in support of not enforcing, right? Because we don't have a lot to enforce on low impact campers. Tunnel Road is not a low impact area. That is a high impact area. It's causing public safety issues, police response, there's crime there, there's open air drug use, there's traffic safety issues. We need to address that issue as a municipality. That's where we're at. It is not a low impact spot. Someone will end up getting, you know, probably run over right out there, because like I've heard from you, I've heard from multiple community members that they have nearly hit people that have been running across the road. So it's a spot that has to be addressed. There also has been a really big restriction for the last 18 months, in that we have been told by the CDC not to move anybody, specifically around homeless camps. So we've been abiding by that as well as a city. Again, it's not really a police thing, but as a city, that's been something that has also weighed in a lot of those discussions as far as making sure that we're not endangering people more from COVID by moving somebody out of an area rather than moving them somewhere else. So those restrictions will have been generally removed for outside, and they will, I understand, probably fully removed by July 1st. But that's also something that's been added into this very complex problem already.
I have one more question, and then we'll move on to a different subject about not just Hunnell, but you said it's high impact. So, and it's in our neighborhood. So I'll just address it to that. Do you get a lot of calls from the houseless with crimes against them? Because I know there's a difference between transients and then the houseless campers, because the transients take advantage of them. So do you get some calls from them?
Yeah, we get, so, again, I've had family that has been spent a significant amount of time, so I hear these stories firsthand, as well as just not only being, I was the commander of Central Precinct in downtown Portland, for 2 years, the last 2 years before I came here almost, and, as you can imagine, in the Northwest, that's one of the largest areas of homeless encampments. And so just knowing what's going on, the victimization among large campsites is enormous. Most people don't report it, because then they'll be ostracized, or they'll be re-victimized, or even worse, right? So the people who do report it, it's good, but I know they don't feel safe reporting it. But we do get calls still, because it is that bad. But that's one of the things that's often overlooked, is when campsites are allowed to get so large, victimization is huge among the campers themselves. Was there something else?
Okay, good. No, that was good. Thank you. That was answered my question. I have a couple questions from some people that emailed them in. And this one revolves around fireworks. Is any one of the police force investigating a video circulating on the internet showing local residents with garages full of incendiary devices? And will there be increased enforcement of illegal fireworks this year?
No and no. I think, the easy answer is that Facebook video post, first off, is 3 years old. Second, I have no idea where it is. I don't have time to take an investigator off child abuse cases to go figure out where someone would get a violation ticket for possession of fireworks. Third, I think one of the most important things is I looked out over the city on 4th of July last year, and of the thousands of fireworks going off, I wouldn't know which one to go pick on first. But the bigger picture, I think, is the question is about the increased enforcement, right? The enforcement on fireworks is, I've been doing this job for a long time. I've been around I've worked nearly every 4th of July except the last couple, because I was finally senior enough to not work them. And I've done enforcement, I've wrote tickets, I've seen lots of fireworks. It doesn't stop the bigger picture, right? What we need as a community, we understand that there's a fire hazard by fireworks in Central Oregon. I mean, we're in a drought year especially, but we're in a dry, arid climate. So having the ability of our communications team, who's been really actively and proactively having a communications message about fireworks and the expectation and the neighborhood respect. We've also worked with neighborhood associations to post signs to say, hey, not in our neighborhood. As a coalition of neighbors, we want our neighborhood to be safe. And that's really what we want people to do, to be a grassroots effort to say, as a neighborhood, we want our neighborhood to be safe. I can definitely send, I have sent a direction to all of my officers that coming basically now until, maybe a week or two after the 4th, that if we have to, obviously, we have the discretion. If we have to write tickets for firework possession, we will, if that's the solution. Our goal really, though, is not to do that, as proactively go out and just write tickets, because that really doesn't make a difference in the proliferation of firework usage. It's never been proven to show a difference. In fact, every year they continue to increase. But I think if I had a lot of cops, I could do that, right? I think that's the real question, is we have a capacity issue. The 4th of July this year is on a Sunday, which we got, I'll just go over it. In 2019, in your neighborhood, we've got 30 calls for fireworks. In 2020, we got 67 calls. And in 2021, so far, we've gotten 6. Not all of those are fireworks all the time, but those really revolve around 99.5% of all those calls happen in the week of July 4th, or there was only 4 calls in January in 2021, none in 2019, 2020, so no New Year's stuff. And July 4th is our busiest day of the year for calls for service. We're responding to fights, drunk people, the Freedom Rally. Is that called a rally or a run now? Freedom Run? I can't remember the name. The big event.
Yes.
That we have Columbia Park's packed, every park is full, and we're just trying to respond and keep up. Drunk drivers, accidents, and keep up. We have 14 officers at work, and we've tried to hire as many officers as we can for the 4th of July. We have 4. So we don't have a bunch of officers to just put on 4th of July firework detail. We need those. I could put them on that, but as soon as I did, they'd get calls to go to more serious crimes. So they really wouldn't be doing that anyways. And I think the other important factor is to realize that if an officer goes out with somebody with a firework and writes a citation, that's about an hour minimum to do that. And then the follow-up piece on writing a report, lodging the evidence, another hour. So we're taking that one officer, a very limited resource I have, off the street for 2 hours during the busiest day of the year for calls for service, for safety calls for our community. To me, it just doesn't make sense. I can't balance that in my head when I have some pretty serious crimes occurring and I need those cops on the street. That's really where it revolves around, is capacity and resource.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I have another question. Does anyone else have a question before I read this from?
There is Freedom Ride. There it is. Thanks, Susan.
Freedom Ride.
No, Joan wrote one. Does the police department have a series of community education classes for the public? In fact, now that COVID's over, I think in the fall, we're prepping for Community Academy. The Community Academy is where community members get to come and go through 9 weeks of instruction and activity and engagement to really get a better inside picture of what we do. And we'll have ride-alongs again. We haven't been able to do that for about a year and a half.
Oh, cool.
That's good.
Okay, Joan, I want to see you out there.
Yeah, you might. You very well might.
Along. That's awesome. Okay, here's another question. I filled out the police survey. You do one. You did one this year, and I think you do one every 3 years, or is it every year?
Every 2.
Every 2 years. Okay. And so I went through some of the results, and it looked, they looked really good. The key findings were most respondents indicated that the BPD did a good or very good job building trust, developing relationships, communicating to the public, and involving the public in crime prevention over the past 12 months. The majority of respondents report feeling safe in the city, both day and night. They expressed a high degree of willingness to cooperate with the BPD, and most respondents trust you guys. However, the ratings for trust and cooperation slightly fell from prior years. There was something about, I thought it was interesting that the perceived problems that they thought were the worst were alcohol offenses, vandalism, and illicit drugs. And then when you just gave us this list, theft and fugitives and hit and run in parking lots seemed like to be the top 3. So there was one thing that I thought was interesting. Oh, the crime reporting tool online. People seem dissatisfied with that. So are there any plans to change that process to make it more user-friendly?
Yeah, thanks for going through that. I think it's important to recognize where those levels of really trust and cooperation are with our police department, especially when that survey was taken, which was about November of 2020. And we all know what was going on in November 2020. It was probably the heaviest national anti-police climate we've seen since, I don't know, maybe the Rodney King era and the riots, but I think this was even bigger, right? Bigger national, more social media, more ability to get messages out. So during probably the biggest anti-police national rhetoric and climate that we saw, we still had significant trust within our community. I think that speaks really highly of the people here. I expected to be much lower. I really did. I thought, well, this is almost kind of a really not going to be a very thorough analysis of what really is going on, just because most people now get a lot of their information from social media. So I was really impressed with it. I think it speaks volumes to the work that we do with our community. There was 2 major concerns that I saw, 3 actually. One is the majority of people that took it didn't actually have any contact with police, which is pretty consistent with surveys, because not everyone has contact with the police in their life, and it's randomly sent to 10,000 households in the city. And then the second one is that people felt dissatisfied around follow-up. They didn't know what to do next, which frequently is an issue in policing. It's not just here, it's kind of everywhere, because we're kind of the show up, put a Band-Aid on it, fix it type of people, and then we leave. And then the third was the online reporting. So we're working on both of those, but really all three of those, because we're implementing a true time survey tool. So if you call 911, after your call, or they're on an emergency number, or you get our service, after your call, you receive a text message back that basically gives you our goal is it's going to give you the case number, the officer that was assigned, details of the call, like what time, what date, any other message we want to put in there, which will probably put something to the effect of, here's what you do next, here's how you follow up the DA. If you're a crime victim, here's your rights, here's who you contact. And then the contact number for the officer that responded. So we can actually have a follow-up process for people to understand what to do next. Frequently, officers say it, but when you say it and you're in the middle of a crisis, it's not really the time to take in information. You're probably not even hearing it. So it's not the best thing. But if you get a text message or an email afterwards, that might be really helpful for people to kind of feel like they were heard, that they're able to do some follow-up, or at least they have the officer's contact information and case number, which is sometimes all they want. So that's one way we're looking at doing that. And then implementing a survey off of that really has the ability to measure people's happiness ultimately, right? With people who actually had service from us. So that's, I think, a really important tool. The other thing we're working on, we want to expand our online reporting, because a lot of people want to report a low-level event like, stole my hose off the porch, where you're probably not expecting the police to come solve that crime, but we want it reported. We want to know what's going on. So making that an easier process for people on the online tool is our goal this next year, to work through that with our IT department to figure out how to make it a better reporting system. We also want to increase that because we're not able with our staffing to keep up to responding to all those calls with the police officer. So we want to divert some of those calls to online reporting.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. And I could see that would help. The follow-up seemed like another one of the little problems that people were going, and it's probably true that the information was given, but it didn't process. So excellent. That sounds wonderful. Does anybody have any other questions for Chief Krantz? Because it looks like we are ready to let him go.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
I was downtown on First Friday, and some guy that was really stoned started following me. And so I took off and was able to duck into a store and get out the back to get to my car, and I was able to shake him. But is there any police presence downtown on those First Friday events? There's a lot of people there.
There is. We don't. So the one interesting part that I've recently been discussing a lot with my command staff here, and Councilor Campbell, close your ears, is that we don't. Not really. We don't. So for a police department our size and the city our size, we're a little understaffed. I'll just say. But what we even don't account for is the 11 to 12 million visitors we get a year. We do not have any specialized tourism type or event type policing groups. So that's something that we need to work on in the future. We have a lot of events here, a ton of them, and we do not provide extra policing for the vast majority of those events. Mostly because we're a super safe community. I keep kind of saying that because we are. But there are these things that happen, like Kayla mentioned, that are concerning, that we want to be present when we can. Frequently the presence can deter something, or at least we're close by to respond. The good thing, kind of the saving grace of that is, Kayla, is that if you would have called 911, we have cars typically within about 3 minutes of 911 calls. So we are available, and that's something that actually, a guy following you around that scared you, that would have certainly been acceptable to be a 911 call if you felt you could have, and we would have been there.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Chief Krantz, for speaking with the Boyd Acres Neighborhood Association. We certainly appreciate your time and your effort, and we love living in a safe city. So thank you very much for taking care of us.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you again.
Mhm. Okay, well, that was awesome. Next up, we're going to get Laura on. And she is going to speak with us about some ideas that she has. So let me get you to unmute.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, and do you need to share the screen or anything? You're just going to be chatting with us.
Just, yeah, no, this is real low key.
Okay, okay, great.
So I just like to thank everybody, thank you guys for letting me come on today and go over my ideas that I had sent to Tom or Thomas. So my name is Laura Dykstra. I have worked I'm not from the neighborhood, but I have worked in the neighborhood, about the last 7 years at North Empire Storage Center, which is right there on Empire and Lower Meadow Drive. And while working there, we've done a lot of marketing, co-marketing with like Ascena Apartments, some of the other businesses. We rent to several of the local businesses in the neighborhood, and also being in the neighborhood so much, I've had a chance to meet and frequent several of the local businesses there. So how this came about is that I've always had an interest in local marketing and have had it in the back of my mind to do something with the businesses in the neighborhood. And something that I recently came across this certain idea, and I feel that it could be a great way to just promote not just the businesses, but the neighborhood association as well. And it was Trevor over at Bridge 99 that urged me to reach out to you guys. So what it is, it's basically just a small mailer with coupons, offers. If you can see that, it's real simple. This is just the prototype, working on colors and stuff like that. The layout's probably the same. And how it would work is that the businesses would just chip in to cover the costs, like the printing and the mailing of it and that type of thing. And it would also go directly to the residents of Boyd Acres, not so just exclusively to that neighborhood. The BANA information would be prominently displayed on the mailer with any kind of information that you would want to promote your Facebook page or any other resources that you would like to put on there. That's basically that part. And then in addition, we would have a digital version of the mailer in a coupon directory, kind of online. And how that works is so it would have all the individual coupons in a certain directory of the participating businesses. And then these coupons can be saved to the customer's, the individual's phone and presented to be redeemed versus just the paper version. So you would, they wouldn't have to remember to bring the paper coupon. It also reminds them of when the coupon's expiring and things like that. And when someone chooses that digital version, their information is gathered. So we gather their name, their phone number, maybe their email. And if we wanted to, we could actually gather a birthday month. So by gathering the birthday month information, we could set up a birthday club as well. Now, this isn't something that's necessary to do, but it's also very doable. And basically how that would work is that we would send out the people that opted in for the birthday club, we would send that out on Boyd Acres Neighborhood Association's behalf, different coupons and offers just for that. So every month, if it was your birthday, you got a special deal from several of the businesses in the neighborhood. Also with the digital coupon directory, what's great about that is that you guys can easily promote it on your Facebook page or your website or any other social media that you wanted to. That is about it. That's the gist of it. Any specific questions, go ahead and we can go there.
Does anybody have any questions for Laura?
Sure, I'll start out.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's probably an idea that has some merit that, to interact with the businesses here and the residents in a positive way that encourages commerce. And I think Boyd Acres in some way would like to probably support that. Could you go over again how the costs are shared or the costs are allocated for the printing and the mailing and the digital support?
Yeah, so basically it's free to Boyd Acres Neighborhood Association. You guys don't have to pay anything. So how it would work, any businesses that want to participate, and that would be me or any businesses that you know of already that I could contact or that you want to contact, we just basically share the cost. So it's like a co-op. It's a co-op, and it'd be at the price point where it would cover the printing and cover the mailing, which is the most expensive part of it. That's it. I mean, it just depends on, how many people we get. I forgot to mention that there's 12 to 16 spots. So it would be divided up into 12 or 16 if we can get the whole thing filled, that type of thing. I'm going to be talking to Press Pros either this week or next week and talk to them about the printing, maybe doing a little bit of trade, put their own ad on there. I've done a community flyer before, but the distribution was different. So this is the first time I've done mailing, which is fine. I have a lot of resources that I'm using. And I did do a partial trade with the printer of that. So I can get that cost down as well. So does that answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Laura, are you doing this for other neighborhoods also?
Not at this time. I chose Boyd Acres because you guys are a very active neighborhood. I'm there a lot as it is, and I know so many of the businesses there already, and it is a very business centric, and there's a lot of businesses in this particular neighborhood. And like I've said, I've had over the last 7 years, I've met so many of the businesses, have dealt with them on different ways, a lot of the owners and stuff. So that's kind of why it's just kind of like my home away from home. So
that's great. I think the timing would be very good for this too. As
far as and getting it put together and out, I'm hoping around the first part of July.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, the board and I will discuss it, and then I will get back with you. About whether we'd like to participate.
Sure. And Tom has sample. I just sent him photograph sample.
Okay.
Of it. Good. The mailers are only about 6 by 11. So like I said, they're not very big. They're not, a big, full size, but I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible because I don't want to have to do a whole lot of graphics. So that's the beauty of it. There's not a whole lot of graphics to add to it, and I can get it done pretty quick once I start working on the businesses. So
yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, Laura.
Yeah.
And for the project. It sounds really good.
All right, cool.
And Tom and I, Tom will get back with you when we make our decision.
Sounds perfect. Thanks.
Excellent. Okay, everybody. I wanted to show you. We have these shopping bags, and everybody who participated in our meeting today. Oh, we lost a bunch of them. Okay. Well, I wanted to give bags away, and you'd have to come and pick them up off of my porch. But anyway, if you want one, then you can come to my porch. You want to write down my address? It's wow. Should I really give my address? I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop recording. Okay, recording is paused.